Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in the world on the 5th of March of 2026. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. With the beginning of the conflict on the territory of the Middle East, the biggest energy crisis has begun. And today probably we received the worst update on this matter. Today we received the report that Qatar is set to fully shut natural gas liquefaction today, two sources close to the matter say. And another important thing is that Qatar is the second largest LNG exporter in the world. So we are talking about the Persian Gulf, so about this territory, and according to information we have, there are hundreds of vessels, tankers, different kind of ships to the west of the Strait of Hormuz, which means that currently hundreds of vessels, hundreds of tanks are blocked by the Iranian forces who are currently controlling the Strait of Hormuz. So the Iranians established complete fire control over the territory, and currently nobody has the possibility to cross this territory and to enter the Gulf of Oman and further in the direction of the Indian Ocean. Nobody is able to do this. And once again, there are hundreds of tankers, vessels, and so on. And we need to understand that when we say hundreds of vessels, hundreds of tankers, we're talking about, not about ships, obviously, we're talking about money. So according to this situation, according just to raw estimations, raw calculations, the Iranians managed to take in hostages more than 10 or even around $20 billion of products that are currently located on the ships, on the vessels, and that are not able to move from this area further to the ports of destination. Billions of dollars are blocked, and billions of dollars were taken as hostages by the Iranians. Another important thing is that there are hundreds or dozens or hundreds of vessels that are located to the southeast of the Strait of Hormuz, who is trying to enter the Persian Gulf to take more oil, to take more LNG, and then to return back to the ports of destinations. But these vessels, as you can see, are blocked and they are not able to move further. So once again, we need to understand that all this oil, all this LNG and so on were already sold to different companies. Everything was already sold 2, 3, 4, 5 months ago. So which means that we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars of products that most likely will never get the ports of destination. Why are we saying that these vessels most likely won't be able to get the ports of destinations? Because since the beginning of the conflict on the territory of the Middle East, at least or around 10 tankers were already damaged and even destroyed. And for example, today we received another video, another update that the Iranians attacked another vessel, and we got this picture. Here we can see a hole in the side of an oil tanker flying the flag of the Bahamas, which was attacked today near the Iraqi port of Hol Az-Zubair. And telling the truth, this update probably is even worse, much worse in comparison with the update about Qatar that we discussed at the beginning of this video. And not about the fact that this tanker was attacked. Well, I've told you that 10 tankers have been already attacked since the beginning of the conflict. One thing is, of course, pollution. Sea pollution. We understand that if a tanker is being attacked by drones, then we need to understand that oil will enter the sea. Another important thing is this video on the matter of this tanker. And here we can see the moment how exactly the tanker was attacked by a drone. And if you take a look at this video, in details, you will see that this tanker wasn't attacked by FPV drone, wasn't attacked by Shahed. This tanker wasn't attacked by a missile. This tanker was attacked by a Navy drone, which means that the Iranians probably found a solution how to start production of their own Navy drones. And now with these Navy drones, most likely every single tanker in this area either would be destroyed or at least would be kept as a hostage during the entire conflict in the Middle East. So now the Iranians have Navy drones, and today we can say that we got the first video that confirms its first combat usage. During the first combat usage, as you can see, the Iranians attacked just a tanker, but we understand that most likely the next target of these Navy drones of the Iranian production could be the fleet of the United States of America, or the French fleet, or the fleet of the United Kingdom, which are getting in this region with the purpose to support the coalition in their attacks on the Iranians. So of course, you will remember what happened the last time when the fleet was very close, let's say, to the shore of Ukraine. If you remember, at the beginning of the special military operation, the Russians lost the Moscow combat ship as a result of course, not as a result of a drone attack, but it was destroyed as a result of a missile attack. But later, since the beginning of the special military operation, the Ukrainians managed to damage and even to destroy a lot of Russian military ships in the area of the Black Sea, and of course lots of vessels, commercial vessels, were attacked as well. So the first combat usage of a Navy drone we've seen, and most likely in coming days the Iranians will intensify their practice of using of this type of weapon against the fleet of the coalition. This is the second thing. And the third thing, as I told you, currently on the territory of the Persian Gulf, there are hundreds of, maybe dozens of billions of dollars that are not able to escape to quit this territory. And all this oil, all this gas was already paid by somebody. So some countries, some different companies from India, from China, from the South Korea, from Japan, from almost every single part of the world have already paid for this gas and paid for this oil. Their money was taken from their business bank accounts and were transferred, let's say, to the business accounts of the United Arab Emirates, of Kuwait, Qatar, and so on. Which means that these days these companies most likely will not see this money anymore either, neither money nor products and oil. Which means that in coming months we might see a wave of bankruptcies through the world of very big companies. Another important thing, the situation in the Middle East creates huge, probably the biggest energy crisis. And for example, since the beginning of this crisis, lots of countries have already announced states of emergency. For example, in Cuba, we received a report that Cuba suffered a mass blackout affecting much of the island, including Havana, as the national grid struggled with a huge power deficit, fuel shortage, and failing power plants. Of course, when talking about Cuba, we understand that currently the United States of America blocks Venezuela and doesn't allow the Venezuelans to sell oil to Cuba. So we understand the situation, but we see that there are some exceptions. Another important thing, for example, is the situation in Europe. For example, today we received a report that Moldova has declared a state of emergency due to rising gas prices. A state of emergency. This is a very interesting situation. Another important thing, for example, the Ukrainian, since Zelensky hasn't announced the state of emergency on the territory of Ukraine because Ukraine is living during the martial law period of time, but according to different sources, according to local media, the prices for fuel and gas are rising on the territory of this country, which means that the common economy situation is worsening. For example, we understand that most likely neither Russia nor Russian allies who has common border with the Russian Federation will suffer any problems, any crisis, any problems with this energy crisis. Most likely everything is going to be okay because Russia has lots of oil and gas. And for example, today, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Hungary traveled to Russia with the purpose to get guarantees. And this is a very interesting situation. According to information we have, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sijarto, stated, and he explained why he came to Putin, "I am in Moscow to ensure that even during a crisis, we will still have the oil and natural gas necessary for Hungary's energy security, and I'm here to obtain a guarantee that the necessary amount of oil and natural natural gas for our country's energy security will be supplied to Hungary by Russian supplies at the same price despite the changed circumstances and the global energy crisis. So the foreign minister of Hungary came to Russia with one purpose, to have a deal. Let's say the deal is very simple. The deal is the next. For example, if the world price for oil is $100 per barrel, then, for example, Russia will sell oil to Hungary for $30 per barrel, which of course will allow Hungarians to stabilize the situation and to resell this oil further in the direction of Europe. So we understand, and most likely the Hungarians and the Russians managed to make a deal. For example, the Minister of Foreign Affairs also added that Ukraine has for several weeks blocked the Druzhba pipeline towards Hungary, cutting us off from oil supplies based on political decision. Once again, but most likely the Hungarians and the Russians managed to find a solution, and most likely they made a deal. And what does it mean? This means that most likely something bad might happen on the territory of the western part of Ukraine in coming days or weeks. Why is that? For example, this evening, the Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, stated that we will break the Ukrainian oil blockade by force. As of now, I don't know what exactly the Prime Minister of Hungary was talking about, but there is a key word: by force. Not by political means, not by economical means, but by force. And if somebody tells me that he's going to do something by force, first of all, I think and I see military forces, tanks, aircrafts, missiles, and so on, and of course drones. So very difficult to understand what exactly he was talking about, Viktor Orban, but we can speculate, and we can think that maybe he's going to build up the Hungarian forces along the border with Ukraine somewhere here, just with the purpose to play with Moscows and to force the Ukrainians to do something. If the Hungarians, of course, and the Slovakians decide to build up their forces along with the border with Ukraine, of course, this will force the Ukrainians from some points of view to redeploy additional forces in the western direction with the purpose to stabilize the situation. And if the Ukrainians redeploy their forces, let's say, from the Zaporozhye direction in the direction of the western part of Ukraine, of course, this can lead to unpredictable consequences for the entire Zaporozhye direction. As of now, I'm not saying you that the Hungarians and Slovakians are going to do this, and maybe the words that were made by the Prime Minister of Hungary are just a part of a political game and political campaign, election campaign that is currently taking place on the territory of this European state. But he knows the energy crisis is going to be very big and very, very difficult for many countries. So that is why everything is possible. And it seems that just the leaders of Hungary and Slovakia are trying to be on the safe side before the worst thing happens. Another important thing is the statement that was made by the leader of China, or not by the leader of China, but by the Chinese authorities. Chinese refineries on orders from Beijing are halting diesel and gasoline exports due to reduced oil supplies from the Middle East, Bloomberg reports. Refineries have been instructed to stop signing new contracts and negotiate the cancellation of already agreed upon shipments. An exception is made only for aviation and bunker fuel stored in bounded warehouses. So which means that China is going to stop supporting and supplying energy resources to different probably countries and states of Asia, first of all, and especially in the direction of the South Korea, Japan. And it seems that a very big energy crisis is going to take place exactly in this area, because according to information we have, South Korea received around 75% of LNG exactly from the territory of the Persian states, the states of the Middle East. Another important piece of news is update that is coming from India. Russian oil cargoes swing back to India as Iran war hits supply. India is increasing its purchases of Russian oil amid the war in the Middle East. Several tankers carrying Russian oil have changed their route and are heading for India instead of East Asia. According to ship tracking data, at least 2 cargoes of oil have already been diverted toward Indian ports. So we understand, and according to Bloomberg, we can say and we can agree this for 100% for sure, that the Russian Federation probably is the only winner of the Middle East conflict that is currently taking place. So let's wait and see, of course, what is going to be next. Let's discuss a few more important updates of the previous 24 hours from the Middle East area. According to information we have, both the Iranians and the coalitions were attacking each other with missiles and drones. Several drones attacked the territory of Azerbaijan. Today we have a lot of videos on the matter. The sources reported that this attack was carried out by the Iranians, and furthermore the president of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, made a statement on this matter. He stated that Iran has committed a terrorist attack against Azerbaijan by striking one of our airports with drones. This is not the first time Iran has shown its face of terrorism. Iran must apologize, or Azerbaijan will not let this go unpunished. So this is something that we have already discussed. We discussed this situation yesterday, if you remember, about a possible ground operation in the northwestern parts of Iran. And it seems that most likely the Kurds forces and maybe the Azerbaijani forces could be involved in this operation. Maybe not at the same time, but in time, first the Kurds and then the Azerbaijanis. And probably another important thing, if you know, the president of the United States of America told the Kurdish authorities that they must make a decision whether the Kurds are with the Iranians or with the United States of America. So it's something like an ultimatum that was issued by the President of the United States of America to Kurds, and most likely in coming days they would be forced to make a decision. As I understand, there is no third option for them. Now let's return back to Ukraine. During the previous 24 hours, we also received a lot of very interesting updates. As the clashes on the territory of the Middle East began, we see that when talking about the conflict in Ukraine, we start receiving less and less updates. Yes, we're still receiving FPV drone strikes, we still receive attacks with missiles and drones, but for some reason the Russians are not attacking the territory of Ukraine with drones and missiles. They decided to postpone this attack, and maybe this situation is connected with the Ukraine's massive attack in the direction of the city of Saratov that took place during the previous night. According to information we have, during the previous night, the Ukrainians launched hundreds of drones in the direction of Saratov, and most likely the Ukrainians were attacking the city because they know that the Russians are using the Engels 2 military airfield to attack the territory of Ukraine with cruise missiles of Ha-101 type. So maybe this massive attack in the direction of the city of Saratov forced the Russians to postpone their massive combined attack. But at the same time, it seems that everybody in the world understands that the conflict in the Middle East could continue up to autumn, up to the late 2026, which means that a lot of countries will lose a lot of money during this period of time, but at the same time, a lot of countries will be able to get and to earn a lot of money. And Zelensky, who is located right in the middle between Russia and Europe, understands that during this year, during the next months, Ukraine will be able to earn a lot of money as a state between Russia and European countries, as the state that the territory, which territory would be used as the main transport and logistic arteria for oil and for gas. So you know that today there was a prisoner exchange process. Today both the Russians and the Ukrainians returned for 200 soldiers on the territories of each other. And from this perspective, and from the perspective that the Russians postponed its attack on the territory of Ukraine with missile drones, probably tell us that maybe there are some talks and negotiations behind the scene where the Russians, the Ukrainians, and the Hungarians and Slovakians are about to find a way how to make a deal, how to conclude a ceasefire, or maybe something like this. As of now, very difficult to understand what is happening behind the scene, but obviously something is happening. As for the changes on the ground, during the previous 24 hours, we received small changes from the Slaviansk direction. Today, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation stated that as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to improve their position significantly in the area of the settlement of Yarova. Basically, the Russians captured the village, according to the Minister of Defense, and based on the report published by Russians, we have adjusted the map. So this is the only important change. As for the previous 24 hours, we also received lots of videos of how Russians were attacking different places, sites, and objects of energy infrastructure and logistics through Ukraine. For example, the Russians destroyed the dam in the area of the river Oskol. Now we understand that the logistic of the armed forces of Ukraine in the Slaviansk direction will worsen, most likely will worsen significantly. Furthermore, the Russians attacked and destroyed several objects of energy infrastructure through the entire territory of Ukraine, especially in the area of the city of Kharkiv. Here we can see some power stations, some substations that were attacked by Russians. These are not big substations like 750 or 330. These are small substations, but these substations also play significant role in the entire energy infrastructure of Ukraine. So these substations and these stations were also damaged and destroyed by Russians. We received reports that the Russians continue offensive operation in the Zaporozhye direction, but the changes are very small. The Russians improved their positions to the east of the settlement of Vozdvizhivka. We have this video where we can see how Ukrainians were attacking positions of the armed forces of the Russian Federation in this area. Based on this video, we have adjusted the map as well. So the Russians are moving, but it seems that the Russians are trying to decide, and the Russians are deciding what to do next, because the Russians, the Ukrainians, and maybe many more countries have lots of opportunities to use the conflict on the territory of the Middle East in their favor. But the only thing that doesn't allow the Russians and probably the Chinese and maybe the Indians to get benefits from this conflict is the conflict on the territory of Ukraine. So that is why the Russians are trying to fix this issue. So let's wait and see what is going to be next, but the crisis we see is growing and intensifying. And that's it for today. The Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.